Okay, Bernie Sanders has officially dropped out of the presidential race. It's really sad, but you know that this was going to happen sooner or later. I'm a mix of emotions. Sadness, anger, frustration, disappointment. It's okay if you're feeling this way too, because it's perfectly understandable. We can talk about Bernie's strategy, what he did well, and what he did right, maybe in another episode. I'm just grateful to Bernie for what he and his campaign did in 2016 and in 2020. He didn't win, but what he did accomplish was open public consciousness to issues like Medicare for All, Green New Deal, income and wealth inequality, Palestinian rights, political corruption, corporate greed, and so on. Medicare for All was in the fringes prior to 2016. Now it's out of the bag, and nearly everyone in the primary talked about it. No politician made inequality such an integral part of their political platform than Bernie Sanders. He hammered income and wealth inequality and talked about the immense greed and corruption of Wall Street and large corporations. When Bernie said the world's existential threat was climate change back in 2016, people laughed at him. Now it's become a widely talked about issue on mainstream news and in Congress. So we have to thank Bernie Sanders for his bravery, integrity, and compassion for shifting that Overton window leftwards and opening that space up to these issues. Not only that, Bernie's been one hell of an honest and compassionate politician who actually gives a damn about working people and has the record to back it up. He is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate. Now, is he perfect? Of course not. But to discount what he has done is to be completely naive and ignorant. I want to briefly talk about some of the criticisms that Bernie and his base are getting from corporate Dems, the media, and moderate voters. Now that Bernie's out of the race, there's been a lot of chatter. People are saying that, Bernie and his campaign are getting a lot of flack for running a bad campaign, for doing terrible with older voters and older black voters. And this isn't wrong. These are legitimate points. Of course, Bernie struggled. There were mistakes in the campaign, and there's no doubt that he could have done better. Bernie could have struck back harder and played hardball against Joe Biden and the media. But I don't want to focus on that. But to say that Bernie ran a poor campaign without acknowledging the horrendously skewed and slanted media coverage stacked against him, that's beyond lunacy. Now, that doesn't mean that Bernie could have done better. It doesn't mean that the Bernie campaign didn't need to work hard or do their best to reach out to voters. But on every turn, the media was inept with their horrific framing, their lack of, holding other candidates responsible. You'll definitely notice this if you watch all these debates with all those terribly framed questions and just the extreme media bias against him. So basically, the cards were stacked against Bernie from day one. And if you're not acknowledging this as part of the reason why Bernie performed poorly, you're not paying enough attention. And not only that, the coordination the day before Super Tuesday, of all the moderates dropping out and endorsing Biden and Elizabeth Warren staying in to split the vote, there was probably a lot of back-channel dealing where Pete and Amy got promised positions in a Biden administration. So secondly, for those that are saying now it's Bernie's job to get his voters to back Biden, I'm sorry, man. That's Joe Biden's job. Just because you're the nominee doesn't make you entitled to someone's vote. You're supposed to get out there and earn it. I already talked about the voting for the lesser of two evils thing on my podcast a couple episodes ago. To ask independents and progressives to vote for Biden, even though he's completely hostile to all social democratic policies, is just loony. Look at his voting record. It doesn't reflect that he will change anytime soon. He said that he'd veto Medicare for All, even if it comes to his desk. He's for fracking. He's not for a wealth tax, not for legalizing marijuana, not supportive of a living wage, not for a Green New Deal. He said nothing will fundamentally change if he's in office. And he's openly disdainful of young people. He's against virtually every single thing that progressives want, and now people want left-wingers and independents to vote and back Biden? I'm sorry, what has he done to earn our vote? This is the exact repeat of 2016, which is actually depressing and laughable. While slinging mud at every possible moment with the most asinine, disingenuous, and just outright heinous arguments, people are supposed to just fall in line? No, that's BS. I also heard the argument that Bernie poisoned the well so people wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. Hey, numbnuts. Biden's record is all public knowledge. You can look it up. It's called a friggin' primary for a reason. Voters decide who they like based on the candidates. To paint Bernie as some evil dude who made it difficult for people to vote Joe Biden is just stupid. I'd even argue that Bernie didn't go hard enough on Joe Biden, who voted for the Iraq War, who was just Hillary 2.0, voted for NAFTA, wrote the crime bill, supported the bailouts, wrote the bankruptcy bill, and so on. And if people don't like Biden, that's Joe Biden's fault. That's not Bernie's. All the stuff that I mentioned, that's all public record. It's all out there. So pointing out policy differences and bad votes isn't a personal attack. It's just comparing records. We're already seeing the shaming and the morally righteous statements being thrown about. It's exactly like 2016 again. They're crapping all over Bernie Sanders supporters and shaming them that they're selfish, that they're helping Trump. And, these moderates and mainstream Democrats, it's all about feeling morally superior and morally righteous while shaming and scolding people. That's not the way to win an election. It's about finding ways to get people on board and wanting to vote for you. So the fact is, polls show very low enthusiasm for Joe Biden, especially from young people. So in a political system such as ours, you need to win votes in places like the Rust Belt and swing states. This means that the Biden campaign needs to build bridges to disaffected, disenchanted people, young people, independents, progressives, and so on. So if Joe Biden ends up losing to Trump, that's on the Biden campaign for not having the correct strategy or not working hard enough to bring in voters. Now this other fellow said we have to vote Joe Biden because of his superior court picks, and that it's going to be better than any Republican. That's true, I think. That's a fair point. But it also comes off as a class argument to me. That's another point of why the lesser of two evils argument falls apart. Like I said in my general election podcast, we have two right-wing candidates in Trump and Biden who preach the same neoliberal politics that have destroyed America. Sure, I'll take a diverse neoliberalism in Joe Biden rather than Donald Trump, but we can't keep playing the same game over and over and over and over and expect something different. Both parties have gone rightward, especially after 1980. Both parties' politics have hurt poor and working people in serious ways. And as long as you keep voting for the lesser of two evils, the Democratic Party will be complacent in even giving out crumbs. The Democratic Party isn't going to listen unless there are real opportunity costs, like having independents and people on the left not coming out to vote. Like I said in my recent podcast about the future of the left, we have to build a movement that is strong enough to exert pressure on a mainstream political party or work outside of electoral politics. We can't keep doing this crazy thing of voting for the lesser of two evils when both candidates keep going to the right. Kyle Kalinske on Secular Talk briefly talked about this in his recent YouTube video. He uses the example of having to vote for David Duke or Richard Spencer just to show how absurd this argument is if you stretch it. Now, if you really think about it, the current circumstances gave us someone like Donald Trump. Our economic system has led to massive inequality, misery, job loss and automation, drug abuse, unaffordable housing and healthcare, dying and decaying communities, destruction of public institutions and services, and so on. The people were so sick of the current system that they voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Joe Biden is literally Hillary Clinton 2.0 in terms of policies, the same policies that gave us Donald Trump. So even if Joe Biden wins, you're only going to create more Donald Trumps, or someone even worse down the line. So it's really simple for me. If Biden supported something like Medicare for all and something like a federal jobs guarantee or a living wage, I'd support him. Now, obviously, he doesn't need to do everything on Bernie's platform. I'm just being realistic here. That would be silly if I expected Joe Biden to support everything that Bernie had. If Biden did something like Medicare for all, a living wage, one or two things, then I'd probably vote for him. That's the cost of getting my vote. And you're not going to get me to support, you're not going to have me support you if you're not supporting anything that I care about. And I'm sure other people have similar wishes too. If you want their vote, you got to go out and give them a reason to vote for you. Shaming Bernie voters ain't going to get you anywhere. And to be honest, I'm so friggin' sick and tired of being chastised for even having standards, for being dumped on for not abandoning things I care about. Me, along with countless others in the country, have a unique set of concerns and policies that we care about and that we're not willing to give up just to throw our vote for someone who doesn't give a damn about us. I'm going to lay it all out for you here. If you vote for Joe Biden, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for doing that. But I'm just going to tell you exactly what would take me to vote for Joe. It's going to be Medicare for all and maybe a second thing like a living wage or a federal jobs guarantee. But it doesn't have to be the entire Bernie platform. And you have to show that you're making an honest effort to fight for these issues because Biden's rhetoric and his past record has shown that he has no intentions of doing that.